This one technique virtually eliminates all crashes. Here's why. My name is Dave Davidson. I'm the founder of Mountain Bike Academy, and in my experience coaching intermediate riders through advanced riders all the way through the plateaus, they tell me that this is the thing that they struggle with without knowing it. Now, in this video, I'm going to be showing you the 5 core elements of balance. It is one technique, but it expands outward into the more complex things that we do. So we're going to cover a giant technical drop today that I did years ago and show you exactly how this one technique goes deep. The one technique is called the pedal press, which you may have heard before, but stick with me. Other coaches as well call it the wedge. Shout out to BICP, Shams March, Roxy. Let me simplify for you what is balance. Balance is the ability to create movement by creating stillness. If you've ever watched Loic Bruni blast down a downhill trail going Mach chicken, you see a beautiful example of creating movement by creating stillness. And it all comes from balance. And the first thing we need to do is we need to have proper foot position. Now, with proper foot position, what you're going to find is that we need to stand inside of the bike. In other words, I don't want to fall forward, I don't want to fall backwards, and I don't want to fall side to side. The mistake that most riders make is they hop on the bike and they lean on the bars or they pull on the bars using their hands. This creates a chain reaction of negative things. It just makes you cry. It makes me cry for you. Because what happens when you do this is that it offsets the work of balance from our legs to everything else in the body. And when we're balancing with everything else in the body, we're using weaker muscles, we're using muscles that are supposed to be able to make small adjustments, and ultimately, we're not able to really balance. We're just holding on for dear life. You want to feel more control. The first thing you want to do is work on your foot position, okay? Now, it's really not that complicated. What you need to be able to do is push your pedals away from each other like this. It's called the pedal press. The reason why this is so incredibly important is that it creates things to push against. If you don't push your feet away from each other and you don't drop that front heel ever so slightly, then you're not going to be able to counteract the forces of falling forward. So this is really important when you're braking, when you're landing off of a drop, doing anything that keeps you from falling forward because forces are coming your way. If you're a downhill rider, extremely important. This foot position gives you balance by default because you can push against it. Hey, by the way, if this is helping you, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I have an AI that finds my subscribers to give you a free fundamentals course coming out this winter. I can't get it to you unless you're subscribed to the channel because the software won't find you. So go ahead and subscribe now. Thanks. Once you have the front foot, and again, it doesn't matter which foot you ride with forward, it's fine. Once you have this position, the next thing we need to do is we need to use this platform to stand on it properly, okay? So while we're riding, we need to create fore and aft balance by dropping that front heel, but what you really want to pay attention to is that front knee. And so when you have a front knee that's really far forward, I don't have an example right here, but if your knee is too far forward, then what it does is it engages your quad the wrong way. And this means that your hips lock up and you can't turn, you can't tilt the bike side to side, and it actually restricts your movement. So this is a very small nuance. I like to play around with and roll that front knee back and forward as I'm standing on the bike to really get a feel for where that nice support is in the feet, all right? Now, once you have this foot position down, we need to go and expand this in other situations. So let's break it down. There's going to be 5 different elements that we're going to talk about with balance, and these are all going to be body movements, all right? So the first one is core strength. You're not here for the penmanship. Thanks for staying with me. Core strength is what we do to properly handle the forces of riding downhill, okay? When you have core strength and you're trying not to essentially fall forward on the bike, we can control that, whether you're doing a sick wall ride getting past horizontal or whether you are doing a sweet drop. This is some old footage of the Red Bull night shift. So this is the drop I wanted to look at with you guys. So take a look right here. There's a lot going on. So first of all, we have downhill, left to right, then we've got rocks and roots, we got a little off camber, and next thing we know, we've got a drop, a big old drop. And then you got to land the drop after throwing a little style and flashing the camera. I don't know how I did that. That was pretty cool right there. You need to be able to manage those forces using core strength. You're going to notice that I'm in what's called a hinge, which is number 2, hinge. Core strength in a hinge. These two work together to give us stability. Many riders, they do this the wrong way by trying to get low by having a hinge without core strength. In other words, they just flop on the bars, and the net effect is that you hold on for dear life. There's no stability. And by the way, if you like this, I've got a few spots to work with me one-to-one in the Athlete Accelerator, and I'm on a mission to solve the progression problem and the crash crisis with mountain biking. If you want to restore your athleticism to 10, 20 years younger, if you want to get technique coaching where we pull out the bad habits and give you the exact step-by-step thing for you and finally give you unshakable confidence to last a riding lifetime, I've got a link below you can click to apply to work with me and my team, and we'll help you do this one-to-one. All right, now 3, we're looking at squat versus triple extension. Squatting is getting low and using your hip joint, your knee joint, and your ankle joint to compress like an accordion. Triple extensions where we just get as tall as we possibly can and jump. Now, obviously on this move right here, I'm just doing a drop, so there's no triple extension. I'm just landing in a nice low position and staying small the whole time. All right, so I'm using my range of motion in a squat with the lower body underneath my hinge. Now, these things work together to give us the ability to absorb forces. The really nice part about this is when my body is nice and low like this, I can go over these rocks and roots and I can set up for the trail out in front of me. So this gives me balance through the chaos, even though I'm turning left over rocks and roots, even though I'm setting up for a large drop that, you know, if you come up short, you're in trouble, right? So the key here with getting low or using triple extension is that this is really all about anticipation. What we want to do is we want to set up for the next feature. And I want to break this down a little bit because when you're riding downhill or you're doing really cool stuff like big drops, you're doing jumps, you're doing rocks and roots, you need to be able to do the thing now that's going to set you up for what's next, not just be passively in balance. The riders that go out there and they just hold on to the bike and they try to stay balanced by getting back or getting low, they think in terms of position, not in terms of movement. So using a squat or triple extension puts our torso where it needs to be, and I did a whole video on torso tracking. So torso tracking is essentially what happens when we use anticipation and our squat or triple extension to put our torso on the trajectory or the place where it needs to be before it happens. Like right here, you're gonna see me getting very, very low, anticipating that I need to punch the bike out for control down this drop, okay? And you can see my torso, I'm really just leaning towards the danger here. A lot of people, they get back, horrible advice because it gives you no room to move. And frankly, it's so much cooler to look at the thing you're scared of and just, God, aim for it, man. That's a good time. Again, squatting and triple extension is the third movement or component of balance because it gives us the ability to position and move towards the thing that we need to get ready for, all right? So using our squat, using our low or our small position can help us do that. Number 4. Number 4 is rotation and anti-rotation. This is another anticipation-based skill. And what it really is just using our core to resist forces this way or create forces this way or this way. So if you ever see someone doing a hip jump and maybe their bike goes this way around them and their body is kind of falling behind, or they're going one way and the bike is kind of going another, this rotation and anti-rotation at a basic level, make sure that when you're doing this part of the trail right here, you know, you're getting pinged around, bounced around, and you're turning, it keeps us connected with the bike and in control of the bike, okay? So this is about connection and control. If you are not an expert or experienced coach or teacher, it is very hard to see this, but if you're a rider, you can feel this. So what's really cool about this is when you're doing pressure to the side, like on a corner or like again, coming up to this drop right here, as I turn left, I can feel this in my body. One of the best things you can do is work on your core strength. core strength is really just the ability to hold the torso on top of the bike and balance without using our upper body. But if you add core strength, you actually get a bonus of rotation and anti-rotation. I personally like to actually practice this. I do things like pay-loft presses. I train in the gym with medicine balls. So this can be something that you can work on off the bike, and it'll have a huge impact on your riding on the bike. Number 5, let's talk about pushing and pulling. This is where most riders really get this wrong. They think about everything as a push or a pull with the arms, when in fact, most pulling and pushing can be done through the feet. What's really cool about this is, let's say that I'm gonna go off this drop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch my bike out ever so slightly right here. You really can't even hardly see it. It might look like I've punched and then I pull the hands in to do a little nice table. So there is a little bit of a punch right here, but what I'm doing is I'm controlling that punch with my legs, all right? Not a lot of people talk about this because they think about, okay, punch, and then we do this, we roll our scapula out. This is the scapula, rolling it. We're just trying to get our body as far behind, and you cheat by punching the spine behind you and punching the hips behind you, and you're leaving the bike. This creates extra movement. Extra movement is bad, all right? Extra movement is really bad because once you have left the ground and you've got extra movement, that extra movement needs to go somewhere. We have this thing called inertia. When you create movement in a direction and then you all of a sudden get in the air, whatever's happening means it needs to stop, or you need to control that inertia somehow. And so if you're floating midair like this, you don't want a bunch of movement that you didn't create. This is why it's so incredibly important to be refined and to practice certain skills. And again, I know I'm doing a little bit of cool movement on the bike on this drop, but if you really take a look closely, there is a tiny, tiny punch right here. You can barely even see it. And you can also see that the back tire gets up closer to my hips, and I allow the bike to tilt forward just a little bit, and I allow my body to tilt down. So I do this on purpose because the lander goes like this when the drop off is like that. This allows me to control the trajectory of my torso, but it's a slight push. And the main thing I'm doing here is I'm pushing a little bit with the feet, okay? So I can roll that bike forward. It might be an inch or two, okay? So when you've got all these techniques lined up and you put them together and they're automatic and natural, you can flow through anything and do it with style. Now, I want you to put in the comments what your biggest takeaway is from this. I know that I've covered some topics that have maybe been spoken about before, but how is it landing for you? Is this something that you got some value out of? Go ahead and put a comment below. Right now, I've got a couple spots in my intensive for Mountain Bike Academy, the Athlete Accelerator, and what we do is we work with intermediate riders to help you break skill plateaus specifically. Click the link below if you want to get your athleticism restored to years younger, if you want to move like an athlete on the bike, if you want to go and get techniques that are super dialed in for the type of stuff that you really care about, jumps, drops, race-winning speed, all of that matters to us. And so we want to help you get it too. Go ahead and click the link below if that interests you right now, and I'll see you on the next one.